Good morning. Good Monday morning, January the 16th, and welcome to your weekly readings. For those who have been here before, let me just really quickly remind everyone, these are general readings. Some of what I say will resonate with you. Some of it will not. It just means that it was intended for someone else. I am not a doctor, a lawyer, or a financial advisor. Therefore, anything that you see or hear in this video that may be construed as specific advice for you, kindly keep in mind, you have free will. Please make your decisions according to what you are feeling inside. Okay? Thank you. All right. For those of you who have been here before, check out the timestamps in the description box below. For those of you who are new, the way that I work is each Monday I jump on. I have 3 decks of cards already cleansed and cleared, and I have chosen 3 rocks, gems, or trinkets. I ask you to go into a light meditative state, and then I ask you to choose which rock, gem, or trinket you are intuitively drawn towards. Whichever one you are drawn towards, that will be the deck from which I will pull your dominant energy as well as your shadow energy for this week. Shadow energies are energies that are bubbling or brewing just below the surface a little bit that you may or may not be aware of, but that you should probably keep in mind throughout the week. So oftentimes it's things like, maybe don't speak your mind this week as openly as you normally would. That could be a shadow energy for the week. And it kind of depends on the placement of your energy in general throughout the week, and to a certain degree, your dominant energy, right? So let me just give you a really quick example. If you have the Hermit as your dominant energy, it's an indication that perhaps you should be going within and taking some time for yourself, looking after yourself, self-care, seeking out a mentor, that type of thing. So oftentimes the shadow work for that week would be, don't be out shooting your face off. Okay. All right. Do I have any announcements? No, nothing special for this week other than happy birthday to the Aquarians and the Capricorns in the group. Okay. I'd like to ask everybody to just go into a light meditative state. This consists of just taking 2 or 3 or 5 really deep conscious breaths. Pay attention to your body as you inhale and what physically happens to your body as you inhale. And as you exhale, relax. And we're going to do that a couple more times. Inhale, feel your chest rise, feel your pulse slow. Hold it at the top for just a moment. And then exhale and relax. And one last time. Inhale deeply. Pay attention to the rise of your chest. Allow your pulse to slow a little bit. And exhale and relax. Okay. If you've closed your eyes, open your eyes now. And I'm going to present the first stone this week, which is a piece of raw rose quartz. If you feel intuitively drawn to the raw rose quartz, I'll be pulling cards for you from deck number 1 this week. Number 2, we have the garnet, a little piece of garnet here. This is being used especially in honor because Garnet is the stone of January. So you will see this stone come out each week in January. If you are intuitively drawn towards this garnet, I'll be pulling cards for you from deck number 2. And deck number 3 is represented this week by a crystal point. So if you feel intuitively drawn to the crystal point, I'll be pulling cards for you from deck number 3. All right, please make your choices, make your decisions. And I'm just going to move my cards off to the side. Okay, for those of you who chose the raw rose quartz, I will be pulling cards for you this week from the Angels and Ancestors deck. And as I mentioned, all of the cards have been cleansed and cleared for everyone this week. So let's have a card. Angels and Ancestors, let's have a card to represent the dominant energy for those who selected the rose quartz this week. Oh, and there we go. I don't know if you can see how that card's turned sideways. Let's pick that one. Okay. For those of you who selected the raw rose quartz this week, your card is represented by the Air Guardian. Shift your perceptions this week. Ooh, all right. What this card is telling me, for those of you that selected the rose quartz this week, is that some of you in the past, I've got the number 3, could represent 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks. I'm going 3 months. So for some of you in the last 3 months or so, you've kind of put some blinders on. You're not seeing things from the higher perspective. You're not seeing the big picture of things. You're seeing things that are straight ahead. And what this card is telling me is that for this week, between now and next Monday, Sunday night, next Monday morning, you're being asked to shift your perception, see things from a different perspective. This can include, but it's not limited to, opening yourself up to listening to what other people have to say, even if their opinion differs from yours. It doesn't mean that you need to change your mind. It does mean that you need to take the blinders off so that you have the whole picture, right? This card is not a card of telling you that you have to change your mind or that what you have been seeing or perceiving is wrong. What this card is telling you is that right now is a time for you to open up and really, really see everything. Okay, that may or may not change your mind or your opinion about whatever is going on. I do want to say that what I'm picking up intuitively is that for many of you, this card does speak to or represent the last 3 years and the changes and shifts that humanity, society, the planet, and so on have been going through as a result of what started in 2020. Okay. And so for many of you, you've formed opinions about right and wrong, about choices, and so on. And this card is not saying that your choice was either right or wrong. What this card is saying is make sure that you have all of the information before you make additional choices. Okay? If you're walking through life with blinders on, you're not going to be making choices that are for your highest good or for the highest good of other people that are around you. And what's coming up for me right now is the butterfly effect. Okay. Remember that whatever choices you make affects the people around you, right? The butterfly effect, and the theory behind the butterfly effect is that we are all interconnected. So any choices or decisions that we make, when the butterfly flaps its wings, it creates a ripple effect through the energy, through the air, through the water, through the earth, through the ether, all of these things. And thus it affects everything and every aspect around us. Everything is energy, right? Just reminding you, everything is energy. So this card wants you to make well-informed choices. That's the bottom line for this card. So for those of you that selected the rose quartz this week, make sure that you have the whole picture before you make your choices or decisions. Let's have a look at your shadow energy. Right, your shadow energy this week is the mirror guardian. Take time to reflect. So this card actually has two meanings to it. One of them is, this is in your shadow right now. This is an indication that, okay, this card is asking you to make sure that you have all of the information before you make your next choices. This card being in the shadow position is indicating that you may be tempted right now to dive in without checking to make sure that the water is safe first. Okay. This card in your shadow position is indicating, because it's in the shadow position, we read it as if it's an opposite. So it's saying take time to reflect. This is indicating that you may not be taking the time to reflect that you should be. There's that should word that we're supposed to be removing from our vocabulary. However, this card's indicating that you may not be taking the time that is required, right? If you're not seeing the whole big picture, you could be potentially jumping in with both feet. Okay, years and years ago, oh, this is probably going back to the 80s. We in school were required to watch a movie. It was an educational movie that was done specifically, as far as I know, to educate us on water safety and going swimming in unknown water. And I think the reason that it's coming up because it was so profound for me. And like I said, this card in the shadow position is almost as if you're reading it in the reverse, which means that you may be diving in without thinking and without getting all of the information. And this movie, going back into the 80s, was about somebody that went to a reservoir and dove in head first. There were rocks and he was very, very badly injured. Okay, so these two cards together for you this week, those of you that selected the rose quartz, are indicating that you need to see things from the higher perspective. Make sure you have all of the information before you're making your decisions. Make sure that you are taking time to reflect. Make sure you have all the information. This is your shadow this week. This is an indication you might be tempted to jump early. Like I said, this card also has the double meaning that mirror guardian. Whenever we have a mirror guardian or something that involves a mirror come up in any kind of tarot or oracle cards, it is an indication to pay attention to karma this week. There is an opportunity for lovely karma to rear her head this week. Now, that may be a good thing if you have been living your life honestly and in good faith and so on and so forth, then maybe you're going to actually get to see karma in action in relation to somebody else who's done you wrong, or this is in the shadow position for you guys. If you have acted in a poor manner towards somebody else, just be aware this card does represent some karma. Okay. All right. Let's move on to those who selected the Garnet this week. Those of you who selected the Garnet, I'll be pulling cards for you from the Osho Zen Tarot. Okay. All right. Where are we going for you guys this week? Wow. Okay. Okay. I've actually got 3 cards for those of you that selected the Garnet this week. I will read them in the order in which they came out. Interestingly, you have one of the very early cards from the Major Arcana, as well as the final card in the Major Arcana, which is really interesting for your energies this week. It means that you kind of have a full cycle that may happen this week. It means that there could be sort of something new that comes up early in the week, and then something that has some closure at the end of the week. And here's why I'm saying that. The very first card in your reading this week is the Inner Voice card. This card is number 2 in the Major Arcana, so it is a very, very early card in the Major Arcana. And the Major Arcana kind of tell a life story for us. We start off with the 0 card, which is the Fool, which is when we're young and immature and perhaps don't have all of the knowledge and information. So this is an indication that something is going to come up for you guys this week, and you are being called to pay attention to your inner voice before you make a decision this week. I'm going to encourage you guys that have this to watch the Rose Quartz reading as well this week, because there's some similarities here in the energies that we're going to be facing and looking at. So you are being called towards paying attention to your inner voice this week. This means going deep within. If you have a big choice or decision to make this week, meditate, pay attention. You can reach out to family and friends for some advice, but as always, take somebody else's advice with a grain of salt because they haven't lived your experience, okay? The middle card that you have is the Patience card. This is an indication that between your inner voice this week and the final card, which is the Completion card, it may require some patience on your part. What this is telling me is that whatever decision it is that you need to make this week, and I am going to say it's pretty important given that you've got the 2 Major Arcana cards here. Whatever decision it is you have to make this week, before you actually reach the completion at the end of the week, I want to say this is probably going to come up Sunday or Monday, even Monday. Yeah, I want to say Monday morning is when you're going to get this completion or closure. You are going to have to exercise patience. Okay. What I'm picking up is there's a decision that you're going to need to make. And when you're ready to make that decision, you want things to start to happen really, really quickly because you've made the choice. But the universe is saying, okay, wait a minute, I got to catch up. Not quite there yet. Okay. The other thing that this card brings up is cycles. This card is really, really important when it comes to paying attention to the cycle of the moon. Where's the cycle of the moon at this week? How does that make you feel? Right? We also have a pregnant woman represented on this card. And what's that representing? Again, cycles, both the cycles of the feminine in general, as well as, you know, being pregnant is a 9-month cycle, 9.5 months. Well, you get the idea. Okay. So what this card is telling me is that as you make the choice, as you go within this week and you tap into your intuition, listen to your inner voice, when you make that choice, you need to exercise patience and you need to pay attention to where the cycle of the moon is and where your own cycle is this week. The final card for you guys this week is the Completion card. This means that there is going to be some closure for you. Interesting. Okay. a lot of the time when I'm doing these general readings, what comes up is work, job, or career, or money. What I'm actually picking up for those of you who selected the Garnet this week is this is a decision regarding love or relationships. Okay, something is coming up for you guys this week with regards to love, relationships, and there is going to be some kind of decision or closure. For some of you, that's going to mean making the decision to actually enter into, for those of you who are single, to actually enter into a more committed relationship. For some of you who are already in a relationship and you're looking at making some changes, not necessarily with changing your partner entirely, but maybe introducing something new, you know, just picking up relationships here. Okay. So yeah, listen to your intuition this week, practice your patience. There is a closure happening, a completion. You'll notice on this, you know, the final piece of the puzzle is falling into place for you this week. Those of you that selected the Garnet. Let's have a look at your shadow energy this week. Okay, your shadow energy this week is the healing card. This is the equivalent to the King of Cups in the traditional tarot. And being that this is in the shadow position for your reading this week, this is an indication that this week you need to pay closer attention to your body. If you're going through a major shift and change and heading towards a closure, then you do need to take better care of your health. Make sure that you're getting enough sleep, enough good clean water, that you're eating healthily, and so on. Because what can happen is when we go through a major shift like this, we are energy, same as everything else around us. And when we go through major shifts like this, it disrupts the energy in our body, which can cause us to feel discombobulated or a little bit out of sorts, like we're not quite ourselves. Okay. And so you are being told this week, this being in your shadow, to pay attention to your health. Okay. All right. Let me just put these cards off to the side so that their energy isn't influencing the final reading, which is the Quartz crystal point. And I will be pulling cards for you this week from the Radley Valentine Fairy Tarot deck. Okay. Now, full disclosure, I am relatively new to these cards. They are in line with the traditional tarot, but the mischievous little fairies do like to jump around a little bit. They like to be heard, and so therefore a lot of the time I've been having trouble just getting one card out. So fairies, can we please have one, maybe two cards to represent the dominant energy this week for those who selected the crystal quartz point? All right. They're behaving on a Monday morning. I shouldn't have said anything. I probably jinxed it. All right. All right. Let's mix you guys up again. All right. Oh, there we go. Oh, and we have two cards. All right. Okay, two cards. Let's put this down over here because we're still going to need your shadow. The first card that popped out, those of you that selected the crystal point, the first card that popped out for you is the High Priestess. Now, I am going to call upon you guys to go back and watch the Garnet reading, because look at this. This card is representative of the two in the major arcana. Look at what the Garnet got this week. The two in the major arcana. Okay. For those who had the Garnet, it is about listening to your inner voice. The High Priestess, trust your intuition. Listen to your inner voice. Careful reflection before taking actions. All right, definitely. Those of you who chose the crystal point, please, please, please go and watch the Garnet portion of this video because the meanings are quite similar. Okay. High Priestess, pay attention to your intuition this week. Insights come through meditation. The second card that you have this week is the Three of Summer, also known as the Three of Cups. There is news worth celebrating, announcements such as weddings, graduations, or births, friends you cherish. The Three of Cups is a card of celebration. It is also a card of feminine energy. In almost every tarot deck or oracle card deck that represents the Three of Cups, you will notice three feminine energies being represented on the card. Okay, in this case, it's three fairies that are represented on the card. This is a card of paying attention to the divine feminine, to the three cycles of the feminine life, being the maiden, the goddess, and the crone. But it is a time of celebration. Celebrate femininity, celebrate that gentleness, right? You've got a lot of feminine energy around you this week, those of you that selected this crystal point. But having said all of that, you are being called to pay close attention to your intuition. There is a decision that needs to be made this week. Okay. Careful reflection before taking action is the advice of the High Priestess. Okay. Which means that there is a decision that you need to make. Given that you've got the Three of Cups, the decision needs to be made with feminine energy in mind. Not with that masculine brute force, I'm going to barrel right through and make my choice. I know what's right here. You need to step back and really tap into that quiet, still voice, that calm, gentle, feminine energy. We require both, and I'm not talking men and women here, okay? We require both masculine energies when making decisions at times, and we require feminine energies when we are making decisions at times. And the two of them need to find that balance. And there are certain decisions that we need to make in our life with the feminine energies exclusively in mind. And that's what's coming up for you this week. There is a decision that's going to come up for you this week that you do need to make, absorbing all of the feminine energy that you can muster, that gentle energy, that calm energy, that intuitiveness, the intuitiveness of making decisions. Okay. Let's have a look at the bottom of the deck and see what your shadow energy is. You've got the Five of Wands or the Five of Spring. Opposing goals arising from differing opinions, feeling at odds with yourself or others, overly ambitious people. This card has masculine energy. This is your shadow this week. This is going to push your buttons because you're going to be tempted to bring in the masculine energy when you go to make your choice or your decision this week. Let me see if I can tap in. This is a general reading. Let me just remind you. Let me just tap in. The energy, the decision for many of you, not all of you, but for many of you, does pertain to family this week. There's something coming up in your family, some kind of decision that needs to be made. It could involve your work, your job, or your career, and that is going to affect your family. And so there needs to kind of be that family powwow decision-making come in. But your shadow energy is the Five of Wands. It's an indication that there's some masculine energy. There's some differing opinions. And this is going to come into your decision making. It's not going to be a black and white for you to make your decision. There's The image that's coming to mind for me this week, those of you that selected this point, the image that's coming to mind for me this week is the yin and the yang. Okay, we know that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. We know that for every part of the light, there's a little bit of darkness. For every part of the darkness, there's a little bit of light in it. All of these things. And so I've got this image of the yin and the yang coming up for you. And, you know, this card is going to kind of push your buttons a little bit when it comes to making your decision. But ultimately, with all of this feminine energy coming up for you this week, make sure that the decisions you're making are coming from that gentle, intuitive side rather than that kind of brute force as far as making decisions go. All right. Thank you so much to all of you for joining me this week. I greatly appreciate it. If you like this video, you know what to do. Don't need to tell you. You hear it a million times if you watch a lot of YouTube. All right. Thank you so much. See you next week. Have a beautiful week, everyone.